Okay.
Hi, I'd like to start by introducing myself. I'm Dr. Gloria Stafford, and I'd like to introduce my colleague as well, Dr. Gowri Gulwadi. We both teach interior design, which resides within the School of Applied Human Sciences at the University of Northern Iowa in Cedar Falls, Iowa. In this presentation, we'll talk about life spaces in which we age. We'll talk about some theoretical concepts to help us understand the person-environment relationships. And we'll discuss how interior designers are well equipped by knowledge and by our experience to enhance these relationships. We'll also share a little bit about both of our research.
So we spend the vast majority of time inside spaces, these life spaces, which must support us and our intentions and activities. So interior environments shelter us, support us, and imbue our daily life with meaning. But age-related declines can happen to all of us without exception. That is, we tend to change a lot, but our environments or life spaces in which we spend a majority of our time may change little over time, unless we actively attempt or intervene to make them age-friendly. So we often recognize our interiors as backdrops or containers for our lives, but not as closely from the standpoint of how do our interiors support us daily.
Options for late life residential life spaces include remaining in one's own long occupied home for decades or until end of life, commonly called aging in place. Sharing living space with others in their home. That can either be a home sharing arrangement or an older person living with a caregiver. Or thirdly, within some type of institutional setting, a long-term residential care facility for aging. Many variations, models, which offer different levels of caregiving and provide different service offerings. No matter what type of residential setting an older person resides in, it is really important to consider the emotional meaning of home to aging individuals when we consider residential options. When older adults have spent so much time within the same home, the cognitive and the emotional ties to home are magnified. When relocation or residential displacement occurs, either prompted by a choice the older person makes, or prompted by physical declines or cognitive declines that necessitate that move, or through other circumstances, people then actively attempt to recreate the essence of home within that new setting, whatever home means to them. The dimensions of the meaning in home can be categorized into those dimensions which are about the physical experience. That would be the room layout, the furnishings, the overall ambiance. Those of personal experience, the memories that have been built there, the sense of attachment, the ability to find security and privacy within that environment. And thirdly, social dimensions of experience within the home. All the relationships that were built in that location with family, with co-residents, with neighbors, and with visitors. Highly related to the concept of meaning of home is that of attachment to place. Theories of place attachment connecting the constructs of place and attachment is rather recent, having begun only about 50 years ago. Home, particularly one occupied for an extended period of time, perhaps decades, is a space really like no other to us. Home serves as a reference to the life behind us and gives us a strong footing for the life that remains in front of us. It grounds us. Place attachment can be defined as the emotional bonds between people in a particular place or environment. When a person feels connected with a place or regrets or would regret leaving that place, an emotional bond exists. The emotional bonds felt by an elder affect their decisions about residential setting, what residential setting they choose to occupy, and in turn may drive the need to take adaptive measures as their own physical and cognitive capabilities decline over time.
So a good way to address the idea of supportive experiences of people in their life spaces is to draw from theory. Let's take the help of a model developed by environmental gerontologists, which graphs a person's needs and abilities against the demands and opportunities within environments. In this model, the environment is broadly conceptualized of everything that exists outside us. So our immediate physical context, social context, etc., and is represented in this model as low to high press along the x-axis. A person is conceptualized with a set of physical and cognitive abilities along the y-axis, also ranging from low to high. At the adaptation level, that is within the comfort zone, there is a good match or fit between environmental constraints and possibilities and our own abilities. When there is a mismatch, we are highly likely to be in the challenge zone. That is, a person with low competence can feel overwhelmed by a highly demanding environment, or a person with high competence can feel underwhelmed by an insufficiently challenging environment. In both cases, it is our sense of agency that drives us to proactively find and reach an adaptation level where environmental demands are met comfortably by our abilities or the best fit. So this environmental proactivity enables this best fit that supports successful daily functioning and successful aging. At such times, interventions in the environment can support our attempts to reach that best fit, such as this example of how a challenging doorknob for arthritic hands can be adapted into a lever for easy access. As we mentioned earlier, generally there are age-related declines in ability, which means a person slides down towards the lower end of the competence axis. At such a time, if the environment has not changed, it would present a higher press or demand. So this model is very useful in understanding the variability of the person-environment relationship, the fit, and therefore how we need to provide a range of supportive aspects.
When there's a lack of environmental fit, when the demands of the environment, the residential environment, exceed a person's ability to cope, that translates into challenging situations for the older person. They either need to undertake some type of adaptive strategy, which could be either an active action strategy or a mind adjustment strategy in order to remain at home in the face of declining abilities. Or they may need to relinquish attachment to one home place and attempt to recreate home in another location. Both of these are stressful psychologically and very challenging and require resilient coping on the part of the older resident. So the concept of age-friendly involves a fit between the demands of the environment and the demands of and the abilities of the individual. Interior designers have a knowledge base on how to create environmental fit, both at the theoretical level and at an applied level. Interior designers understand how to juxtapose and organize functions and elements within spaces to accommodate needs, such as furniture, doors, circulation, pathways, etc., so as to be optimally accommodating. Here are three examples of what we interior designers have within our body of knowledge. The left image exemplifies the concept of universal design, which is the intentional design of buildings, products, or environments to make them accessible to as many people as possible, regardless of age, disability, or other factors. So we strive to do this in all environments, to make environments accommodate as many people as possible of varying abilities. To do so, we utilize the 7 guiding principles of universal design. For instance, that any element within the environment should have simple and intuitive use, should require low physical effort to use, and should include some tolerance for user error. So the principle of universal design really guides us in our design work. The second image exemplifies a publication interior designers utilize very regularly, the standards for accessible design. The most recently published accessibility standards are those from the International Code Council. This is the actual publication, the A117.1 standards, which include all of the design criteria referenced in the building codes that allow a person with any type of physical disability, inability to walk, blindness, deafness, hearing impairment, sight impairment, to independently get to, enter, and use any type of building. So within this publication are all sorts of images and text that tell us exactly, precisely how we need to design specific aspects. Ergonomics on the right is concerned with the adaptation of products to people based on their psychological and physiological capabilities and limitations. Specifically, the design of chairs and desks, for instance, that are comfortable to sit in throughout our workday, that support the tasks we need to perform. These are 3 examples of both theoretical and application-based tools that we interior designers utilize in practice. Interior spaces can support activities of daily living through specific supports aimed at improving those abilities to perform activities of daily living, eating, transferring onto a toilet, toileting, dressing, bathing, and taking our medication. All of these things should be implemented with the help of a designer or an aging in place specialist in the home of any older person who has difficulty with activities of daily living.
We talked also earlier about physical, psychological, and social dimensions of one's sense of meaning of home, and the emotional dimensions of attachment to a place they call home. Therefore, the environment can also be read as a series of interventions for accessing psychosocial stimulation and support. So the nonverbal communication of environmental features also becomes important.
I spoke a moment ago about the active and mind adjustment adaptations undertaken by older people in an attempt to retain normalcy within their residential environment. We talked earlier about how people change, people decline over time in their abilities, but the environments change very little. A few active adaptations are shown here. The center image was from the home of a 100-year-old woman who still baked Christmas cookies, and she marked the appropriate oven temperature with red nail polish. In my research with older people, I have found that they are very adaptive in their effort to retain residential normalcy within their environments.
This was a qualitative study of 9 caregiving dyads, that is, a person in need of care sharing a house with a loved one who's caring for them. Sometimes this means that a home assumes institutional hospital-like aspects and can disrupt familiar and comforting routines. And then it ceases to feel like a home to the caregivers and the family members in their care. In such shared situations, the physical structure of a home can provide varying degrees of support for everyday efforts to restore normalcy and balance. In this study, 3 main home-based adaptive strategies to seek continuity of self were identified: familiar routines, social connections, and restructured time. These strategies reveal very specific ways in which connections, separations, and transitions within the home spaces supported their meaningful experiences. So the physical structure of the house, its connections to the immediate surroundings, as you can see here, a kitchen table with a window view to the garden, or an accessible deck, or a nearby garage, etc., played an important role in their restorative strategies. Spatial connections also include visual access as well as physical access, which is visual access is the connection visually between indoors and outdoors, and that is influenced by the size of the window, the height above ground, and the time of day or night. But physical access refers to the accessibility of outdoor spaces. So these are just some examples of how the physical structure of the home enabled some of those continuous attempts to keep a sense of the meaning of home. In this particular study, which was of memory boxes in a memory care center, let me just backtrack and say what a memory box is. It is a display case mounted in the hallway just outside individual room entrances, in this particular case in a dementia care facility. Each box is often a very simple rectangular wall-mounted box with a wooden frame and a glass insert designed to hold personal memorabilia of the resident. Spatial and detailed design aspects of dementia care deserve attention because they contribute to the overall experience of these vulnerable individuals who need more support from the designed environment. In this study, I examined the use and usefulness of these boxes at the entrances through environmental walkthroughs, photo documentation, and inventory of the memory boxes. And one of the things that we found were the memory boxes were beneficial in creating identity, assisting in orientation and wayfinding, and encouraging reminiscence, but they were also very useful for the staff as a tool. So even though it was a small part of the environment, it was a part of the meaning making of home.
In my research of homes, of late life aging in place dwellers, I found that excessive possession accumulations sometimes became an issue to contend with. We accumulate possessions throughout our lives, but there has been found to be a reduction in ridding sequences. That is, culling items from our home to sell or to donate after about age 50. This often creates a glut of possessions within homes in late life, which can cause tripping hazards, poor indoor air quality, as in dust accumulations, and stress about eventual disbandment for both the older person and their family. The chart at the upper right conceptualizes possession accumulation in the solid line, contrasted with possession desires in the dashed line. In our young adult life, as we start out, we often yearn for additional material wealth. With increasing affluence by midlife, we have accumulated and acquired most of our possession desires. We end our lives desiring little but possessing much, causing environmental misalignment of possession accumulations. Possession accumulation has also been shown to taper off at about age 50. If there were continued episodic ridding and culling of possessions, as we do in our younger life, spring cleaning, garage sales, donations, older people would achieve better congruence of possession accumulation, possession management. Such possession management strategies have been recently elucidated, for instance, by Marie Kondo in her popular books, and by Margareta Magnusson in her book about the practice of Swedish death cleaning, which is a practice, a self-initiated process of culling possessions in later life. In Sweden, that's a beneficial practice so that we don't have excess accumulations within our homes in later life.
So while old age can be very fulfilling and enjoyable, in the process of aging can be fulfilling and enjoyable, it is often also accompanied by daily, complex, multidimensional challenges and stresses. We, in the past few slides, have introduced various topics of interest to us in our interior design research, and we've shared what we found. We also talked earlier about the concept of adaptation levels and the person-environment fit when a person adapts or the environment adapts to meet each other in the comfort zone. However, we also explored the role of personal resilience in this process of meaning making and homemaking or placemaking. And in this context, age-friendly environments can be read and interpreted in various ways by various people.
The ability to persevere despite being exposed to adversity has been characterized as resilience. The environments in which the oldest old live out their lives independently are crucially important research sites because they reveal environmental proactivity in action within a tight spatial physical sphere. They show us how people are being resilient. They provide the context for maintaining personal identity and for sustaining meaning in the face of declining health and functioning. So in conclusion, we have presented ideas about how interior designers can support age-friendly environments. And now we welcome your questions.
Thank you.